Whenever possible, it's generally better to use a webhook to trigger your make scenario than a timed trigger. The reason is a webhook will only run when there's new data from your data source, where a timed trigger will run over and over again even if there's no data. This is all great and dandy, but there's a little problem we have with make webhooks called parallel processing. Parallel processing means multiple webhooks can process at the same time, and this can happen if you receive a bunch of data from your source all at the same time, or if your scenario is turned off and you go flip that switch on and there is a queue that has to be processed. This can cause a huge overload to the APIs you're trying to talk to through your make scenario and potentially cause a lot of errors. I'm going to talk to you about parallel processing and sequential processing and the pros and cons of each. But first, my name is Andy O'Neill and I help entrepreneurs like you add time-saving automation to their business. Check the description for a link to get one-on-one help from myself or a member of my team and to subscribe to my weekly newsletter. So let's start with parallel processing. Parallel processing is where more than one webhook can run at a time. And I was watching the Paris Olympics recently, and I saw a great example of this when they did the cycling races. Basically, you have cyclists that run all at the same time. They have a start, and they are going side by side through the course. The downside of this, again, is if you have API limits or errors, you're going to be running a bunch of these at the same time. And it can be a challenge to get all of these through. So let's look at a scenario here, and in my scenario settings, which you click this little gear right here to get to, I have the option to do sequential processing, means these will run one at a time, and if I turn that off, it will give me parallel processing. So I'm going to turn sequential off, meaning we're going to run these in parallel. We're going to save this and back out. And you'll see here I have 10 records in the queue. And if I turn my scenario on and process old data, we should see that all of these, you can see here on the right-hand side, all of these stack up in the queue and they're running all at the exact same time. Let's talk about sequential processing. If we go back to our Paris Olympics cycling example, you can see this is more like the cycling time trials. One person starts and a few minutes later, another person starts. If you have a backlog of webhooks to process, then sequential processing may be the way you want to go so you don't hit any API limits or connection limits with your third-party services. There is a drawback. If one of your webhooks has an error, or think about the time trial, if somebody crashes, that stops everything from happening. And no more scenarios will run until you fix that error. So let's go back over to my scenario. I'm going to refresh, and I should have some webhooks in the queue here. Right there, I have 10 in the queue. I'm going to go in here and edit, and I'm going to click my scenario settings, and I'm going to say sequential processing, yes. I'm going to save that and back out of here, and then I'm going to turn this scenario on, and I'm going to process old data. So I have that data in the queue. You can see now we're running one at a time. Again, this is a simple scenario. There's only 10 in the queue. I've had scenarios like this where I've had hundreds in the queue. I just couldn't leave the parallel processing on to run those. So again, this is running one at a time, sequential processing with a little pause in between. There's a third option where you can do sequential processing, but it will not stop if you run into errors. And that is to use a third-party service like HookDeck. HookDeck allows you to run your data through it, and it will manage the sequential processing, but it will not stop the process if there's an error. If you want to see how to use HookDeck with make scenarios, click on this video and I'll walk you through that process. I appreciate you watching. Give me a thumbs up if you like this content and consider subscribing, and I will see you next time.